Well, I'm doing the work of 7 people. And I said, I got to get some leverage because I am tapped. I can't carry this. So I actually changed the philosophy. If you want something done right, don't do it yourself.
Kris, is anything truly free?
That seems like a really loaded question, person.
Intentionally so. Is anything free?
No, I'm positive it's not, because it takes time, and time is your most valuable asset. How can anything be free?
So let's step out onto a broader scale. So not just buying a product or a service for free, but like where you got to today, what was the cost? What's the cost of having like an extraordinary life?
Okay, well, let's just pause. If anyone's just like, hey, I'm happenstancing on Kris Krohn and he's claiming to have this amazing life, can I qualify it for a little bit?
Sure.
Because I'm about to go into like, pull the curtain back on dirty little secrets.
Yeah.
I think people look at me on the outside today, and if they look at all my social, they're like, okay, this guy is suffocating me. He is everywhere. He's on every channel. I see in his family on private jets. He's got a documentary made about him. He's done $1 billion in real estate. He owns hundreds of businesses. Like, who is this guy? And then on top of it, he has like some fitness channels and health channels on the rise. And he does this breakthrough emotional freedom technique work. And it's like, what is going on? This guy's kind of like all over the everywhere. And so sure, yeah, I mean, the show is called Hello, Have It All. And it all stems from a philosophy that I think life is way too short to excel in a single dimension when we are multi-dimensionally faceted human beings, and we're capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for. We're capable, like in this world today, if you've got the right mentors and the right system and philosophy, you can be rich. You can also have an incredibly healthy, sexy body for as long as you can hang on to it until you're ready to dump it for the grave. You can have a 10 out of 10, a 12 out of 10 marriage. You can have like you can be the most amazing parent. Like, I believe that you can have everything.
No matter the circumstance.
Yeah. And I think that there's people that look at me today and they're like, okay, well, you look relatively young. You look, I think, pretty handsome. You know, you're tall, you're fit, you're built, you're strong, you're muscular, you're charismatic, you've got this energy that you can communicate with, and then you do all this emotional freedom technique on breakthroughs and helping people overcome their garbage, and then you're building wealth and you have all these millionaires. Like, it looks like you have it all.
Well, you bought a jet, and what's the car you've been driving? An Apocalypse?
Several, yeah, fun things. So the point is that this didn't happen on accident. Mm-hmm. And there's actually a system behind this whole notion of having it all. And I've actually never shared it with anyone before. I keep this like really, really tight-lipped. It's just personal. It's like, so literally Is
that where we're ending the podcast today? You're just
and
like,
cut.
You're like, and I'm not going to tell you about it today either.
No, I think let's have this conversation.
Okay.
So have you heard about an X factor, this phrase that people sometimes use, like, oh, I see you on America's Got Talent or those singing competitions. Like, oh, you have it. You have the X
je ne sais quoi, the thing that can't be described.
Yeah, you have this thing that makes you stand out or different. And by the way, is it God-given or is it developed, right? So if I go back to like my very, very beginning, I went through high school and college, honestly, feeling handicapped. In my intelligence. I would hang out with like a lot of the smart kids, and I cared to do well because that was part of my upbringing. My dad, being a German immigrant, said, work hard, get good grades, go to college, become a doctor, do something, like make better choices than me who's swinging a hammer, right? Master craftsman from Germany, came over to America at 35. And that was the ideology that he passed on to me. It was the plan. And I think everyone has heard of this plan because most of us are on that plan. And so when I was trying to do hard in school, there were many subjects that I really just struggled with. I couldn't get physics. I couldn't get chemistry. I struggled with the sciences. I'm really great at stats and basic entry-level math, but like calculus and trig, like just right over my head, right? I like geometry. That one's right, angles. So I felt stupid. And I felt that I felt like God spent a little less time on me maybe than other people. And I was somehow maybe disadvantaged, at least in my intellect, right? I also was chubby. I struggled with managing my weight and dealt with a certain amount of depression and sadness in my life. So, I mean, kind of stepping into adulthood was a little hit and miss. Like, there were parts of me I was really disappointed in, and there were other parts of me that still hung on to hope because I was still young, that I could live this great life. And I created a philosophy that I've been living my life by for 2 decades. And I feel like everyone keeps looking at these, like last Friday, I literally got verbal yeses on 2 9-figure sized deals. And that was just a typical Friday. That's become typical. I win every single day. That's how I feel. And actually that's, you know this, you're the CEO of my company. So like, you know, this is what's happening. And it's not luck. It is now momentum that is working for my good because of a private strategy. And it has to do with this notion of an X factor. I remember being young and thinking, okay, let's put it in different terms. Malcolm Gladwell says that to become an expert at anything, you have to put in 10,000 hours and then you can own that thing. Now, the world is a little more familiar, I think, with that idea because it's like, well, go to college and become a great lawyer. Maybe you go to Harvard and MIT and, so there's this idea of excellence in a field. Mm-hmm. So the first field I chose excellence in was sales. I knew I wasn't going to be a doctor.
Which, by the way, I think is going to be a surprise to a lot of people listening, is that sales was the first.
Yeah, I got into telemarketing when I was in college to just kind of put myself through college. I didn't expect for it to be a good job. And it was 100% commission. And part of me hated that. I mean, talk about fear and scarcity and talking all day to people that for the most part don't want to talk to you. But there was something about the challenge that got me a little excited because even though I think that my brain at that time, not true today, but back then, I had a hard time being described as an academic, but my street smarts were a little more savvy. Mm-hmm. And so the idea of sales, it was something that I worked at and I actually became better at. And after a year of working in this company, I hadn't made a ton of money, but I started figuring out enough of it that I vied for being an assistant to the corporate trainer and I got the position. It gave me a little bump in salary, a little bit of safety, still could do some commissions, did some training. And I spent 4.5 years at this company basically teaching and mastering the game of sales till I was earning a solid 6 figures from it. And I understood the psychology of it. I understood how to overcome just about every objection. And that ended up being a foundation for my next big move. So I guess what I'm starting off by saying is that I developed mastery in something. I got my 10,000 Malcolm Gladwell hours, and whether you're selling private jets or Xerox machines or selling something over the phone, that's a skill set that some of the most financially successful people possess. Like some of the people that go the furthest are really good at sales. You can find them in entrepreneurship, or you can find them literally at straight up sales organizations. And the ones that sell the largest commodities with the largest commissions are those that make the most money. I learned that there's no difference between selling something for $100 and something for $1 million. It just depends on how big you want your commission to be. So I started developing that ability, and that was the first thing that I learned. And I didn't know that it was going to be cornerstone to real estate, entrepreneurship, and developing success in companies. So now I owned this thing. So I got curious, what would happen if I could layer 2 X factors? And so at the time, I was also going for real estate investing and started developing real estate as a business. And it was so foreign to me. I remember hearing all these terms and not getting it and feeling discouraged, but being a little bit more street smarts than academic, I said, I'm going to figure this out. And I found 3 people that had all made over $10 million in real estate, and I was lighting them up. And it took about 14 months and I got my first house. And a year later, my second, and a year later, 2 more, and the next year, 12, and the next year later, 25 more, and then the next year, 100, and the next year, hundreds. And I developed along this way that mastery comes from the ability to scale something without being involved in it. So what I didn't understand is, on the one hand, I became financially free 4.5 years later from real estate, meaning I wasn't rich, but I had $12,000 a month residually, and it meant that I didn't need my job anymore. So my sales job exited at the same time that I had all of this financial freedom through real estate. But there was a new skill, a new X factor emerging. And what it was scale. Scalability, systems thinking, operations thinking. See, I had these 25 properties, and I was celebrating that I had just graduated college, was never going to use my degree. I celebrated that I walked from my 6-figure job because my real estate had replaced it. My real estate then was making me closer to $250,000 a year. And I was pulling my hair out because I said, I'm living my dad's philosophy. If you want it done right, you have to do it yourself, because my dad taught me that my entire life. And I got to the point where I'm like, this sucks. I hate this. I feel like I'm doing the work of many people, because at that time, it was just a month earlier where I'm a full-time student. I work at a job full-time. I earn, by the way, 3 times the average person's salary. So there's the work of 3 people on top of being a full-time student. And I got my real estate, at least the job of 3 people. I'm doing the work of 7 people. And I said, I got to get some leverage, because I am tapped. I can't carry this. So I actually changed the philosophy. If you want something done right, don't do it yourself. And all of a sudden, I handed off my real estate. I parted from $3,000 a month, brought someone in, gave them upside commission, and all of a sudden, I was done. And in that one move alone, sure, I had money come out of my pocket.
You got your time back.
But I got all my time back 100%. And I started saying, wait a second here. No longer a student, got my degree. I don't need this job anymore, and I don't need real estate anymore. So I said, now I'm going to scale it. So that year I doubled my portfolio with a fraction of the time. And then I started scaling it for other people and building portfolios. And before I knew it, I mean, years later, I had a team of 200 people that did everything for me. To this day, I put less than a couple hours a month into my entire real estate wealth building portfolio that is growing like a freaking behemoth. And so scale was another system that I learned. Then I had to learn how to speak. And I was scared and I was nervous and I wanted to be charismatic, but didn't think I could pull it off. I couldn't do it. I remember the first time I ever spoke, I was butchering. I had this dyslexia thing. And in front of the whole audience, I said, there wasn't a cloud in the sky. That's what I should have said. But instead I said, there wasn't a sky in the cloud. And everyone laughed, but I couldn't hear why, because dyslexia, you usually don't hear it when it comes out. And, I felt embarrassed. But I started doing 2, 3, 4 presentations a week. And then I did that for years. And I remember when I got to the point where I'd done 1,000 presentations. And, today, if someone comes out to one of my events, they will compare me to the best speakers out there and say, you're better than this person. You're literally the number one in the world. I've heard the best of the best. And this isn't to say I am better than those people. I think we're all different for different reasons. But I think what I hear them saying is, you are one freak of nature, captivating speaker on that stage to do what you do.
Ah!
Yep.
I didn't get you that time.
Nope.
Okay, so everybody can understand what just happened. I found video of Kris Krohn from 15 years ago?
Yep.
And you were standing in front of camera, you're a toothpick, you're like the suit is like swallowing you because you're like this skinny kid. And Stephen Miller, right before you're about to start speaking to camera, he just screams.
And I think I wet myself a little bit.
It threw you off your game so bad.
Yeah.
And then I look at you today.
Well, but also, in truth, I'm going to tangent for just a moment.
Let's do it.
I think some of us have handicaps in life. And while I feel like, honestly, now I feel like I'm super blessed. I feel super genius that I've developed in many areas of life. One of the disadvantages that I didn't understand years ago is that I had a hypersensitivity disorder. I still have it today. And it means that when I hear sounds, just when we were at the sales office and I was training and Marianne was whispering in your ear.
It bothered you, huh?
I stayed on target, but part of me wanted to take my shoe off and walk to the back and smack you both on the head. Because for me, I hear everything and everything wants to steal my focus and distract me. So I've learned that when I focus on something, I have to physiologically focus. I have to mentally focus. I have to emotionally focus. I have to spiritually focus. I have 4 levels of focus that I put in, and I don't want my concentration broken for anything. So
when Stephen Miller screamed at you right on camera, you were like, it
totally
pulled
threw me
you
off.
over.
And so, I actually have this. My eldest daughter has it, and I'm teaching her now how to wield it. I'm like, hey, this is a curse, but you can turn it into a hyper-focused weapon. And I told her, I said, I sincerely believe that the majority of my success
is because of your hyper-focus.
Is because I require massive amounts of focus, and then I'm like a freaking laser. I don't let go until I own it, which means that I put blinders on. Like, again, pros and cons, but I made that. I don't know if there's a person on this planet. I'm gonna literally, if focus was a competition, I'm pretty sure I'd take gold. Right?
We came up with the term for it. We were like, ADHD is attention deficit.
It's a hyper-focus disorder.
You're attention abundant.
Yeah. So if you start looking at the layering, then I started, let's just fast forward to social media. YouTube, when it took off, I learned how to get in the camera 3 hours a week in studio. My team pumps out 1,000 pieces of media a day. And people that watch me just even from a year or two ago, they're like, wow, you've gotten so good at that. And I've made it so second nature. So now I can aggregate with millions of organic views a week these tribes of people from all over the world. So now I'm good at gathering. Then I had to develop and learn how to literally master the marketing side. Then I had to learn funnels and value ladders inside of business. And then I had to learn how to scale and grow business. And then what are the whole SOPs and critical drivers of business? And then I had to learn accounting and how to read financials so that I could literally look at them for 10 seconds and know exactly what's happening in the business by converting numbers into words and words into numbers. These are all
skills.
They're all skills. And if you put in your Malcolm Gladwell hours that you get to a level of mastery, this is what happens. When you start layering them together, if you have enough of them, you become a freak of nature. And I say that in a complimentary fashion. Because all of a sudden, if you can speak powerfully and you understand the entire psychology of sales, and then you can pull in mountains of books and mentorship, because I've paid millions of dollars to mentors to teach me the philosophy of personal development at the deepest level that I've been living. And then I layer on top of it, I'm 8 weeks out from my current show. I'm doing a physique competition. And again, I'm going to be at a 5, 6, 7% body fat. And I layer in, the mastery of body on top of that and the discipline it takes to be able to get there. And then, and everything that goes into that. And then my marriage. I've been married for 20 years. I got 4 kids. My wife and I, whether people believe it or not, the last several years, we finally got to a place of spousal advocacy where we are the greatest fighters for what that person wants in our life. My wife gives me everything that I want. I couldn't have more sex if my life depended on it. I couldn't have more intimacy, connection, time to date. My wife and I, every Wednesday is Bliss Day. That means that we go somewhere in the world and it's just us. Like, I invest so deeply into that woman. I have a whole philosophy for how I invest deeply into my God, my children, the time I take with you as my CEO, my management team. There's time for all of this stuff. Because once you've mastered it, you don't need to do a lot to sharpen your skills. Now you just get to win by leveraging it. So when you put all that together, you're basically building a superhuman. And I hope anyone that's still here listening to this, that this isn't about me. I'm literally giving you a playbook for how you stand on the shoulders of giants by becoming the giant. And how you awaken that is you ask yourself this question: what am I mastering and what are the benefits of it? For example, take the auto mechanic. You got an auto mechanic, makes $80,000 a year, and he's a gearhead, and he develops this skill. He's done it for 20 years. He's really good at it. His income hasn't changed a whole lot, but he's really great at listening to a car and diagnosing its problem or its whatever. Well, good. What are the personal benefits to this individual? Let's assume it's a man. For this man, what's his benefit? Well, first of all, if his car breaks down, he can fix it. Yay for you. You saved a couple $1,000s. That's it. There's no more benefit. So why would you dedicate the rest of your life into something that has no new value for you than the value you've gotten in the past? That mechanic should ask, how do I create an innovative mechanic shop that is different than anything else on this planet where I compete to be the best in my space? Looks like I'm going to have to learn business and marketing and some other skill sets and how to become a successful manager, ultimately owner, but someday just become an owner, not an operator. Well, now I have a mechanic that has mastered that skill set, that owns a mechanic skill shop. And then he franchises it. And then he actually has 100 of them. And not only is he wealthy, but he's working on 3 new skills. What are they? I hope they're different than being a mechanic. This whole modern day notion of a Renaissance person. What happens when you develop all of these skills and layer them together? Well, so here's my philosophy. And I'll share a little story here that last week, one of my 9-figure deals was with a solar company I have a consult for equity on. A month earlier, we took a couple of months and we negotiated this deal. Kris, you get 10% of the solar company, but you have to put in the strategy to help grow it. And after I determined that I could grow this thing 10x, I said, game on, drew up the paperwork, signed it. And it's only been a month, but in that period of time, I've had 2 meetings. Actually, it was a 40-second video that converted one guy to bring his entire team that doubled the company. And then it was a 2-hour meeting with another gentleman who's one of the biggest names and players in the space that all decided to come on. And overnight, within a month, it tripled the size of the organization. And that now this next year, it'll be stepping into a 9-figure valuation. It does make me, now it's going to make me millions of dollars. But how was I able to make that happen? Well, zoom in on the sales pitch. I'm sitting down with the owner, me as a small part-time owner, but the business strategist and advisor, and then the other individual that if we can recruit will change everything. And I said, guys, you need 3 X factors. Because if you have 1 X factor, you'll be better than your competition. If you have 2 X factors, you'll be an anomaly. But if you have 3 X factors, you'll be the leader in the industry. So the first X factor was stop being a solar company and start being a leadership training company. And you do that by a powerful culture. And we're going to do that through the game of breakthrough. I will bring transformation to this organization. You guys bring your people to my events. I'll put them through a process where we can literally develop their mindset so deep, because I've done it on mine and other organizations. I know how powerful this is, that if you do that, you will stand out of the crowd. They're like, they were floored. This is going to be amazing. I said, number 2, if your people make a lot of money, they'll spend a lot of money. They're idiots. So what you're going to do is you're going to teach them how to save money by delaying gratification. You're going to give them access to business and real estate investments that will help them rapidly grow their wealth. And then number 3, you're going to give them a profit share program so that they'll never want to go and spin off as their own dealer once they become successful, because they're actually like an owner getting a piece of the action. And they looked at that and they're like, wow, that would make us so different than anyone else. I'm like, great, that's your second X factor. And then they said, well, what do you mean by third X factor? And I said, guys, you understand that I have a social media company and I create different verticals. I said, what if I could bring you the solar vertical? What if you owned the conversation of solar on the entire planet so that you could teach all solar companies how to do it the right way, how to sell, and you would be the trusted name and source. Meanwhile, you're going to get RFPs for doing solar for people all over the country, and you're going to recruit like a beast. And the name of the game in winning is if you have the right foundation, if you have the right financial model, and then if you can bring to the final component the ability to recruit, it's game over. You can create a multi-billion-dollar organization. It's happened many times over. It is a known on how you do it. You just got to have a special enough culture and these other things in place. So I shared that with them and I said, by the way, I can snap my fingers and build that entire vertical. It'll cost $150,000 for the year. The owner said, well, that's nothing to me. I said, great. So the money's covered. I'll do all the work. I'll lead and head up the whole thing. And I said, I just need one of you two to be the talent. Guess who needed to be the talent to get them recruited into the game? And then the meeting ended with everyone just looking at each other, ended with a spiritual moment and everyone saying, this is it. Well, that took 2 hours of my life. It's probably one of the biggest, a year from now, when I look back, it'll probably be one of my biggest money-making moments. But how did I get there? Number 1, I mastered sales. That was present. Number 2, I've mastered speaking. That was present. Number 3, I've mastered breakthrough. That was present. Number 4, I've mastered finance, business, real estate, profit sharing. That was present. Number 5, I've mastered social media. That was present. I combined all 5 of those and it became impossible for either party to say no. So, you should be asking yourself, what skills, X factors do I want to develop that can all sing together and turn me into a freaking nature superhuman? And this is decade-long thinking. This is not overnight stuff. It'll take you years to truly master one of them. I recommend that you work on one of them, and when you've got it down, then you should work on 3 of them. When you have it down, you should never have less than 3 that you're working on, because you're going to wake up 10, 15 years from now, and you could have 10 of these. Right now, I have 17. And all 17 come into play, and they've made me such a unique individual that you can put me on any stage to have just about any conversation, and I'm going to be the limelight, life of the party, the most interesting person in the room, and everyone wants to find a way to get in my camp. And that's been my playbook. And before I die, I want to master 100 things. And that's my game plan.